He didn't just escape. He humiliated a nation. This isn't just drugs, it's power, betrayal, corruption, and the legend of the man they said no cage could hold. Sinaloa, Mexico, 1957. In the hills of La Tuna, a village stitched into the mountains, Joaquín Guzmán Loera was born into dust and silence. One of 11 children, a father who raised poppies. A life without wealth, without power, just earth and struggle. He started small, selling oranges on the roadside, tending to his father's crop. But the mountains held other trades, and by the time he was a teenager, he was running product for those who lived in shadow. They called him El Chapo, Shorty, for his height, but no one called him small for long. By the 1980s, he was climbing through the Guadalajara cartel, learning the routes, the risks, the rules. And when that empire crumbled, El Chapo carved out his own. He became more than a smuggler. He became the architect of the Sinaloa Cartel, a syndicate with its hands in every corner of the drug trade: cocaine, meth, heroin, fentanyl. A ghost in the jungle, a king in exile, a man they said couldn't be touched. But power doesn't go unnoticed, and in 1993, they caught him. His first prison, his first escape. They would catch him again and again, but each time, he slipped away, not like a fugitive, but like a magician. Until one day, they built a cage they said no one could break. The Altiplano, a fortress made of steel and shame, where El Chapo would finally vanish. Or so they thought. Altiplano wasn't just a prison. It was a message. A message to every cartel, every smuggler, every kingpin. Here, even your name means nothing. El Chapo was locked behind steel and concrete 23 hours a day. No visitors without clearance, no conversation beyond orders, no light but the sterile ceiling above. Each day the same ritual: wake, eat, pace, sleep. Under cameras, under eyes, under the illusion that control was total. But control in Altiplano was a performance, because while they watched him, they didn't see everything else. Every shift change, every camera blind spot, every guard whose loyalty could be bought. He studied them all. And outside those walls, men loyal to Sinaloa were already laying plans. The guards couldn't hear it, but beneath that polished floor, the hum of betrayal had already begun. The plan didn't start in Altiplano. It started beneath it. More than a year before the escape, while El Chapo sat behind bars, his people were already outside, quietly buying land. A warehouse, unremarkable, just over a mile from the prison. But beneath it, history was about to be written in soil. They brought in engineers, not just workers, miners, architects, smugglers who had tunneled under borders before. This wasn't a hole, it was a blueprint. They used GPS triangulation to map his cell from above. Drilled down slowly, checking seismic shifts. Every vibration risked being detected. Every misstep, a collapse. So, they worked in silence. Slow, precise, obsessive. The tunnel would be over a mile long, 30 feet underground, lined with wood, lit with bulbs, vented with custom fans. A rail system was installed, powered by a motorcycle engine retrofitted with electric silence. They laid steel, built a sled, tested it dozens of times, without ever being seen. And most impossible of all, they aligned the tunnel's final stop with one exact square of concrete, in a single prison cell. In the shower, the final piece of the escape was already waiting. A handheld GPS and a cell phone smuggled in, delivered by his legal team, according to later reports. They would call, he would crouch, and the world would change. July 11th, 2015. Evening fell quietly over Altiplano. Inside cell 20, Block A, Joaquín Guzmán was following routine. A short walk, a modest meal, a shower before lockdown. The camera above watched as he paced, then stepped into the corner of the room toward the shower. He crouched. He vanished. At 8:52 p.m., the feed lost him for exactly 34 seconds. When guards arrived, all they found was a hole. The tunnel was just wide enough to crawl. The air was damp, the walls close, but the rails were ready. He climbed onto the rig, the modified motorcycle built to run fast and silent. And then he disappeared into the dark. For over a mile, El Chapo tore through the underworld, a ghost on a rail, chased by nothing but silence. When he emerged, he wasn't in a prison anymore. He was in a warehouse. His men were waiting, and within minutes, he was gone. By morning, it wasn't just a prison story, it was international humiliation. The headlines wrote themselves, El Chapo escapes again. Mexico's shame. The Tunnel King walks free. The President of Mexico appeared on national television. Red-eyed, exhausted, he promised answers, promised justice, promised heads would roll. And they did. Over a dozen prison officials were arrested. Some claimed ignorance. Others simply looked down and stayed silent. One of the highest-ranking names was Selena Oseguera Parra, Mexico's federal prison chief. She was accused of turning a blind eye and was placed under investigation. Valentin Cardenas Lerma, former director of Altiplano, resurfaced in speculation. He had previously been removed for corruption, yet his name re-emerged in connection to the escape. Many believed the tunnel wasn't built by criminals alone. It was built with silence, with help, and with deep cracks inside the very system that swore to hold him. The United States demanded cooperation. DEA agents flooded in. The FBI offered support. But El Chapo wasn't in Mexico City anymore. He wasn't anywhere. No photos, no signals, no ransom. Just a tunnel and a ghost. Conspiracies began to form. How could he have vanished so perfectly? Who looked away? How deep did the corruption go? Some whispered that the tunnel wasn't the escape. It was the distraction, that he had already left long before the cameras noticed. That someone, or something, had opened the door from the inside, and in the middle of it all, the Sinaloa Cartel didn't just survive. It celebrated. Their king had walked through the walls of the strongest prison in the nation, without a shot being fired, without a drop of blood being shed, just silence and steel. Legends don't need witnesses. They just need silence. And that's what El Chapo left behind. Not a shootout, not a rebellion, just a hole in the ground, and a nation in disbelief. For months he became a shadow. He moved through villages, mountains, rumors. Some said he never left Sinaloa. Others believed he fled the country that same night. Private planes, subterranean routes, fake IDs. Every whisper had its own version of the truth, but none of them could prove anything. And maybe that was the point. He had become more myth than man, more idea than presence. But they caught him again in 2016. Another raid, another arrest. This time he was sent to the United States, maximum security, no tunnels, no phone calls, no mistakes. But the escape remains. A story carved into the concrete of Altiplano. A tunnel so perfect, it looked like it was built by a god. They called it arrogance. They called it corruption. They called it impossible. But to those who know the underworld, it was something else. It was a message. Cage, no matter how strong, can hold a man who sees the walls as temporary. You've been listening to Whispers of the Underworld. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, sleep well.